All right, great. See, this is, oh, darn it. Oh, it finally worked. Okay. Everybody's been on a journey with me, Nana, because I've been trying so hard to connect StreamYard to Instagram.
Yes.
And I always flip it. And Instagram has my most followers, and I finally did it. So people on Instagram Live can actually finally see a very clear picture. They could join, they could chat. They're like,
Excellent.
see, it's echoing. That's what I thought before.
Okay. Woo, we did it, fam. Yes. Yay. Okay, hold on for a second. I just want to do this real quick for a moment. Yeah, that's how we start all the shows, Nana. All right, this is Bad Bunny. All right. Starting every show with Bad Bunny.
All right.
We are in revolutionary times. We need energy, love, and fun. So thank you, everybody. Peace, everybody on Instagram. As you see, I could finally figured it out. I would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube page. I turned the music off. That was just a little intro out there. And on Instagram, I can see you and you could drop questions. So let's start. A lot has happened in the day, as usual. So where do I want to begin? Well, first and foremost, everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for continuing to support Disrupt the Chaos, sponsored by Cooperation Jackson. The more people watch, the more people share, the more we can do. I'm happy to have on Nana Jumphy. I've had her on twice before, and I will continue that because I really know there's a plethora of immigration organizations doing great work. Baji, make sure that Black Alliance for Just Immigration does not forget Black people, African people throughout the hemisphere, because obviously the whole narrative to this day is that every immigrant is either Mexican or Central America and leaves out 90% of the world. So I'm so happy because things are happening so fast, y'all. So it was really good at breaking that down for us. Okay, let me do a little update on the story. I think it was a month ago when the brother Robert Brooks in upstate New York at near Rochester, New York. For people don't know, that's about 3.5-4 hours away from New York City. And yesterday, the Onondaga County Medical Examiner's Office determined that Robert Brooks died as a result of a compression of the neck and multiple blunt impact injuries. What that complication of the neck means is that basically, like, it got separated, like the bone probably shattered, and it's horrific to even think about it. And of course, they always have to say he had weed in his system like the rest of the world. But says it's not a factor in the death. So that happened yesterday. So I'll be having a lawyer. When we first heard about this case, I reached out to her and she immediately came on that night. So I've already said, okay, this is a follow-up. But for folks that have been following the death of Robert Brooks, especially folks in upstate New York, it has been deemed a murder, which will mean hopefully they take those cops or CEOs. They've already been fired, but now they should not be they should be up in prison because they murdered him on camera while people were laughing, including the nurse, because people are so inhumane sometimes. Okay. Nan, I'm just gonna drop this a little bit and then we're going right to you because I had to write it down. Like, this don't ever stop. Okay, so in Trump world today, he has signed an executive order to ban transgender student athletes from women's sports. He talked about taking over Gaza and making it the American Riviera. I was like, do you know there's a whole world out here? I don't think you could just be like, hey, let me just drop in. But what he says, now I totally get what my friends from Palestine have always said about how incredibly beautiful and everything is about their land, right? So he's like, yes, let's make a golf course or whatever. He's insane, but he's doing the bidding or whatever. Him and old dude prime minister, I never say his name right, so I don't really care. Must be happy. He looked very happy when Trump announced that, but the rest of the world came back very quickly and were like, no, you will not be doing that. Okay, yesterday as well, his staff are drafting an order to eliminate the Department of Education. You know how our kids go to school and read and write in colleges and like all, he wants it gone, the entire thing. I'm telling you, this is in 2 days. What else? Oh, he is having employees snitch on other employees and saying that if they do, they might get a bonus. While he's forcing people to leave, but 25,000 people have said they're not coming back. Then today, the newly sworn in Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who is like, what's his name in Florida, the governor's best friend, said she will plan for the Department of Justice to pause any federal funding to sanctuary cities. And yeah, Elon Musk is apparently living in one of the federal buildings, moved his family up to the penthouse and live like, okay, I guess he's the president now. I do know this. A long, long time ago, I said, one day the president is going to be sponsored by corporations. Like when you see NASCAR, it's like Dove or whatever, chickpeas, so like all the patches. That's the president now, Nana. Like, Elon Musk is the president living up in some building, like people are like getting kicked out. And this is not specifically Trump, but I think this is important. Mark Zuckerberg has someone removed sanitary products from all the men's bathrooms in all their offices around the country and around the world, which have been provided for transgender and non-binary employees. And so I guess Zuckerberg was like, yeah, let's do that too. Nana, help us kind of like, yeah, we have to do it. See, my energy, I think something shifted where I did a fun show today with Amanda Seals, and I just realized like I've always been a person I have my like ups and downs, but usually I come with the energy, and I was like, I haven't been coming with it, and I have to, because we all have to be coming with the energy to do everything and anything we can do to stop this. People are going to die. Transgender people will commit suicides. If the DA is Attorney General is Pam Bondi, forget any cop ever getting arrested or anything around a police killing, maybe at the state level, but not at the federal level. So Nan, as it regards just kind of like all of this and trying to see our way into channeling said energy to organizing.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot in one way, and it's not in another way, which I know sounds strange. So, since January 20th, I know that I've been, first of all, thank you for having me on. Let me start with that. Let me not be so breathless. Let me start with that. This is really important, and I hope that people are supporting this show, supporting you, because it is chaos and we need to disrupt the chaos. And you were talking about disrupt the chaos before the chaos agent showed up. So it was prophetic in terms of the name of this show and really this movement that this show is leading. So I want to remind people, because I am not a millennial and I am not Gen Z. And there's a lot of ways in which those of us who are Gen X are sort of already treated as if we should be, gone and put out to pasture, though I insist on still moving. But one of the ways that I think Gen X and so-called boomers are really critical is in reminding people that we actually have spent more time in this world of attack on our folks from every level than we have in the world of, I'm going to say, movement for Black lives time period, right? The past 10 years, when people really felt like, hey, you can take over streets, you can do this, you can get arrested, you're going to get out, there's bail funds, there's who, there's what. Like, that's not the world you and I came up in, Rosa.
Yeah.
So let's be clear. It doesn't mean, and people say we're not going back, and we're not going back. And these people are not trying to go back. Let's be clear. The people that are engaging in all of this harm, they're not trying to go back to 1955. They are absolutely having a, for lack of expression, Eurofuturist ideal of what the world should be. We talk about the world we're building, the world we need and deserve. They are executing on their effort to build the world they need and deserve. They feel like, and they are correct, that efforts have been successfully made to dismantle some of the world they were building and that they don't deserve. And they're pushing back. This is their pushback on our push. This is their defensive move. We are not on the defense. We've been on the offense. This is their effort at defense. The saying is that the best offense, they say, is a good defense, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to use their defensive moves to be an offense. And it's more important than ever that we remember that their world is the alternative, that, and it's archaic and it's decaying and it's crumbling, and that this is their effort to try to patch together the last hurrah of building the world they want. And that our world is modern. Our world is transformative. Our world is the world of the energy. And so our main focus should be protecting our people, or preparing, first of all, for what is coming. And I think there are a lot of people that have done a great job at that. Protecting our folks as this battle wages on. And again, I think there are a lot of people who are doing a great job of that, and pushing forward in the line that we've been pushing on. And those who have been doing that have been doing a great job, but obviously we need to move with the force that is equal to that being moved against us to make sure that we can move forward, not just hold the line. So I'll say that. I mean, what's not being shown with the media, in mass media, is how many injunctions are happening against what's going on and are being successful. What's not being shown is how there are people outside of just what you saw in Los Angeles or in Miami, Atlanta, Texas, that there are people all over this country that are pouring into the streets. What's not really being shown, until recently, because Congress people joined, is how many people are in the streets in DC, right? And so people are moving and people are fighting and people are winning some of those fights.
Yeah, and I'm always happy to see folks out there. I just think maybe there has to be more of a coordinated effort around sustaining protests, not just like staying in the streets, but sustaining. I also feel like what the Republican Party has always been really good at is recruiting from when teenagers are in high school. Because when you go to most university, college, in higher education institution, there's always students that form a group because they're Republican or Democrats or third party. But the Republicans invest like hundreds of millions of dollars in summers to train them, right? So then the first year and then the second, and they keep growing around those type of politics. Yeah, I think we need something like that. I think the difficulty is, where would the money come from? What, because these nonprofits, not the nonprofits themselves, nonprofits right now are getting hit hard. I mean, like we talked about it. I know so many of you are leaders of nonprofits and are like, well, we just lost one of the major grants, or we just, they said this part is over. So how do we kind of maybe do something nationally that can feed into bringing young people into organizing?
So I think two different but related conversations. I think when we look at who's out here doing a lot of the work on the ground, that it is young people. Like when I'm going to stuff, I'm not seeing all these gray-haired people. I mean, I'm seeing us, us too. We there with the 2 and 3 gray hairs we may have. We're there, and I'm seeing people with head full of gray hair. But I'm seeing a lot of folks who are what I guess they call Gen Z. I'm seeing a lot of folks who are, younger millennials. I think that it is an intergenerational movement. I will also agree with you that the funds that are being put into that are not really happening. So what we are, as I say all the time, in the era of who gonna check you, boo, right? Who gonna check me, boo? The answer is the people. But and we're there. We're doing the part that we can do, but we definitely need more infrastructure, which means that we need more funds. I just saw recently that you have these billionaires that are supposed to be lefty, and when you call Michael Bloomberg left, I mean,
I feel like it, right?
I'm like, that sounds crazy. But anyway, but he and some other people, they put together what, $500 million or $50 million, maybe it's $50 million that they're putting towards the House Democratic caucus, and it's supposed to be, used towards getting the working class. And they've even bought so far into the Republican playbook that they're calling it like, get them back. Like they really lost the working class to the Republicans, right? But when I think about that, I'm thinking, well, who are you putting this money into, right? Like, where is this money going? Are you putting this money into campaigns for candidates, or are you putting this money into people on the ground, right? Because we know, even with this election, if you ask people who are doing civic engagement work, and Baji was part of that, bigger groups like Black Lives Matter, right? And some, Black Voters Matter, excuse me, and some others that were doing that kind of work, there was no funding being put into it in comparison to what was happening in 2019 and 2020. The Democrats literally thought that vibes were going to be what was going to happen, and that they were going to bully, for lack of expression, that's coalition of Black folks, folks of color, and people who are otherwise marginalized by the system, to just automatically go with them off of words, while they catered to Liz Cheney and them, right? And so I'm worried about this money piece. Like, are you raising all this money to pour into the same old, which is going to give you the same old result? Or are are these folks going to raise money to check and to match what's happening on the other side? Look,
no, that's the whole point, that they are raising money for a Democratic Party. I am talking about outside of an electoral anything. Look, we may never have elections the same again. Like, and I don't want to hear anybody telling us you were wrong. They told us we were wrong with Trump 1, then Trump 2, then whatever, the debacle of that campaign. But more like, these huge nonprofits should just be funding grassroots efforts, not civic engagement in that way. Because even though 75 million people voted for Trump, but a lot of millions of people either chose to stay home, or voted, like especially Michigan, with the uncommitted movement, voted for everybody but Harris. I'm talking about more like organizations that are already there that know they could do the work, but they need the funds that are unfettered. It shouldn't have to come with like writing a report and what was the quantitative value of going A, B, C, D, E to stop immigrants from being rounded up. I mean, like Guantanamo Bay is now open, like 30,000. They're saying they're going to take 30,000 undocumented people from here.
Yeah, well, they're not going to do that. But the point I was making earlier is the same point that you're making.
But wait, go back to the Guantanamo Bay. They're not going to do that. They're doing it now with putting the Salvadorians. They're not. Okay.
They're not. First of all, listening to the Trump administration is like listening to the police public affairs guy. So let us stop there. Okay?
Yes.
Listening to those people is like listening. Remember when the first Iraq war happened and there was the brother in Baghdad that was like, we're waiting. And meanwhile, everything was crashing around him. That is what that is. Let's stop. Honestly. First of all, I want to make the point. I'll go back to this you and I are making the same point. I'm saying, why are you putting $50 million or 500 million, whatever it is, into candidates and into all of this other stuff instead of putting it directly into the people that can move on the ground? So you and I are making that same point. Okay. With respect to this comment, look, this this man knows full well. So I'm going to use Puerto Rico as the example. Let us go to our lovely Boricua, okay? Borican. These folks want to have a Puerto Rico without Puerto Ricans, okay? That's never going to happen.
Exactly.
They're never going to have a Gaza without Palestinians. They can forget it. If the Israelis have not bombed these people out of Palestine, he's not going to just suddenly remove 1.2 million people out of Palestine. That is not what is going to occur. As you see, they've already pushed back against that. He tried to bully Mexico. He tried to bully Colombia. He's tried to bully Canada. He tried to bully. These countries are looking at him and saying, get out of here. He told the Caribbean, we're going to dump people with you. They said, no, you're not. Not over here, right? He told the DOJ to pull money away from immigration attorneys working in detention. Just today, I believe it was, or maybe it was last night, the DOJ rescinded that order. I'm telling you that harm is absolutely happening. I also want to remind people that Joseph Robinette Biden literally deported more people than in a 10-year period than any other president. He is the deporter in chief. But as Malcolm said, he did it like a fox. Okay? He grabbed people that were in prisons. He grabbed people that were going between the jail and prison. They knocked on people's doors quietly, just, discreetly and non-chaotically in an orderly harm. Trump and his minions, the Trumpanzees, they are like, no, we want to do chaos, like the things that were flying in the Wizard of Oz. You know what I mean? We're going to go in and just create as much chaos as possible, say the most cartoon character villainous stuff as possible, make these orders that are completely outrageous and make no kinds of sense to create that initial shock and awe terror in hopes that people will concede. So you talked at the beginning about the federal employees. Most federal employees are unionized. If you take them off of work, they're not fired. They're sitting at home still collecting a paycheck because they have a union. Those that say, hey, I'll buy out, it's because they were ready to leave their job. They don't have to quiet quit anymore. Now they can just real life quit and put money in their pocket. Okay? Yeah. And so that doesn't mean that there are some people who are not leaving in tears, who are not leaving upset, who are not feeling forced out. That's not my point. My point is that the conceding, the agreement that this man is omnipotent is what is going to have him win. Every time we recognize that he loses on a daily basis, we make sure that the fight continues.
So right now, as it regards particularly Venezuelans and Haitians and Chinese folks like what is that looking like on the ground? Because obviously the media will always just show the same B footage, particularly like young men that are mostly Latinos. They're not showing us Haitians people. Um, I wanted to understand more about protective status because the TPS or Venezuelans that he took away. So if you're Venezuelan, and where would you mostly be coming into entry with? Like on the Mexican border?
So it depends because remember they created a whole program for people. So there was a program for people, and then you also had people that were coming across the border. The program for people allows you to fly in. The which is the program that they had for people from Cuba, from Honduras, from Cuba, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, from Venezuela, so you could fly in with those people. And then you have people that were coming over the border, right? I need to give people context when it comes to Venezuela. So the all of the things that were pulled out to some degree for Venezuela, including TPS, including this program that started with Venezuela. Venezuela actually, amongst all of these folks, has been in a privileged position for a global South people. And the reason I'm using privilege in quotes, and the reason they've been in that position is because the U.S. is fighting with the government of Venezuela. That's the reason, just like the U.S. is fighting with the government of Cuba. And so they went out of their way. I mean, on the Venezuelan side, the U.S. was actually through their, how they have that propaganda TV or whatever, showing images of Border Patrol reaching into the water and pulling Venezuelans out of the Rio Grande and saying, "Welcome to America," and handing them flags. So they were encouraging people to leave Venezuela as part of their economic, right, psychological, etc. attack on Venezuela, on the Venezuelan government. Well, what ended up happening is that after a while, those people coming started being you and me. And they were like, wait a minute, that's not who we're looking for. We were looking for those Venezuelans who were like white and rich and trying to escape socialism. We weren't looking for people who were coming in response to the sanctions of 90% of the country's income imposed by the United States. And so that is partially the reason why, in spite of the fact that this administration is still fighting with Venezuela, they're trying to cut it off in terms of TPS because they want to make it the clear, in my view, they want to send what they see as the Black and brown Venezuelans and indigenous Venezuelans back home and figure out how they're just going to keep these other people who may get asylum or some other process. So I think that's different than what's happening to Haitians, what's happening to other Caribbean Black folks, what's happening to Black folks from the Caribbean who have, in some cases, temporary protective status, and a lot of, in some cases undocumented, but just look at protective status as you've talked about, as you've lifted, where we have reason to be really concerned about whether or not that TPS is going to stand or not, depending on how this government has decided it wants to deal with our governments back home. So it'll be very interesting to see who gets dealt with first, whether Haitians are allowed to stay on, right? Maybe they'll try to calculate how many Haitians voted for them or something, but who gets to stay on and who gets to leave or who's forced to leave. And the same thing with Chinese folks. There's no Chinese TPS. Most African countries also don't have TPS, Caribbean countries as well. And so with Chinese folks coming to the border, that this shutdown of the border is going to impact them. It's going to impact African migrants, Haitian migrants, other migrants, indigenous migrants, and others from Central America and other parts of the global South. It's going to be serious. Of course, Biden had such an asylum ban beforehand. It's just the grip is going to be tighter now, and therefore the fight for us is going to be more intense.
So they're rounding up people. Is it depending on what city? Like, how are those people, they're rounded up, taken where before they're put on a flight? And like, when they're put on a flight, do they know what country they're going to? Is it like they just put them in planes and land where?
So there's two crews of people. I know everything Nana says is complicated, more complicated, but there's two crews of people.
we don't have ability, like the way this is the grit of it,
Right.
because it can be
So,
so overwhelming.
so the people who they are rounding up right now, because first of all, they have a quota allegedly of 75 people per ICE cop. And so some of these people are just being let go just on the strength, because it turns out that they're not even deportable. Okay, so let's be clear
Yeah.
about that, because I don't even see 75 people in a day. So imagine if each person has to get 75 people. They're just grabbing people who they can grab if they're meeting their quota, which some are, some aren't. I just saw a report today that ICE is releasing people from detention because it does not have capacity.
Right.
Because it's not normal to just run around grabbing people. That's not a normal thing. I will also say that deportation, even expedited removal, and I'll describe that in a minute, is like eviction. It's not that they just grab you, put you in detention, the next thing you know, you're on a plane. That's not how it works. There is a whole deportation proceeding, there's process, and those courts are backed up. So in terms of regular deportation, you have the opportunity to try to see if there's some other basis that you have to stay in the country. There is a process there. That's why these pro bono attorneys are really important, but there is a process there. If you were in this country for less than 2 years, which some of the newly arrived migrants are going to fall in that category, then they have a much shortened process called expedited removal to get rid of, to deport people. And in those cases, it's still a process. It's just a shorter process. But it's not like they grab you and then a month later you're on a plane. The people you see that they're deporting now are people that have been through a process. Some of those people before the administration was even here. It just got here, believe it or not, 3 weeks ago. Some of these people are from 5 months ago, from a year ago, from 2 years ago. So these are not the same people that are the people that are being detained in this very moment. And what he's trying to do, to your last question, is to find other places that people can be taken to, because some of the home countries of people are saying, hey, because of the way you're acting, we're not going to accept people. Okay. You cannot be sent to a country, your home country, unless it accepts you. It acknowledges and agrees. And so some of these countries are saying no, which is why they're going to people like Bukele, excuse me. I call them Bukalele because I'm mean. Bukele, who is terrible over in El Salvador, to say, okay, where one in every 45 people is in prison, and saying, we'll send them to you. And he's like, yeah, I'll take them. And I'll take U.S. citizens that have been criminalized too.
Yeah, that's what somebody here was saying, that El Salvador is accepting all the quote immigrants because of their president's agreement with 47 and Mark Rubio.
So he can't accept all of them because El Salvador just doesn't even have that capacity. They barely have the capacity for all. I mean, 1 out of every 45 Salvi in El Salvador is in prison right now.
No, I think what this person is saying is Mark Rubio is also there to talk about potentially expanding the prison complex in El Salvador.
Absolutely. But I mean, people need to see how many people are expelled, or deported from this country every year. It is millions and millions of people. Before Trump, he does not have the space for all of those people. But it is, what Trump is trying to have, and Marco Rubio's there as Secretary of State, right? What Trump is trying to have is to get some country to say, yes, they'll do it, so that he can check that off of his box, like some new country. And so, Bukele is saying, yeah, I'm game. But importantly, and I want people to hear this, he also says he's game for people who have been criminalized, who are U.S. citizens. So if you end up being convicted and sent to federal prison, Bukele is saying El Salvador is a place that he's willing to have you end up in. That's going to make family visits very difficult.
Damn. Wow.
And that's what I'm saying with him. He has crypto money, and he, instead of the money of the country, he is totally trying to be one of their boys. He's so happy, he don't know what to do. Because he been with his white Tino self trying to be up in there.
I should always be ready. Nana calls them white Tinos, y'all.
He should be ready, but he has never, he's so happy he doesn't know what to do. He feel like a whitino Elon Musk. He's so excited, but no, you are not a whitino Afrikaner. At the end of the day, Trump and them will throw you in the trash too. He'll look up, as I said to someone, hey, Noriega also thought he was somebody's boy. And he
Right.
ended up in federal prison.
No, you don't belong. So I mean, we're seeing like schools, and well, schools a lot have been like telling ICE you can't come in here,
Absolutely.
and reading and like protecting their communities. What is something people should be doing now? If they're like maybe in a smaller, not a big city, smaller, people obviously are getting together. Like, what kind of support is needed?
So I think that the know your rights is basic. People, we used to do know your rights all the time, even in the
Right.
context of police, as you know. And then people decide, I know my rights already. I don't need to get, okay, now that it's time to pull them out, they can't remember anything. They're calling me, they're texting me in the middle of encounters. I'm like, okay, this is why you're supposed to practice. But know your rights are really important. You can go to baji.org. We'll have that information up on our website. If you go to Instabaji, you'll be able to see some slides, save that. So you have that. But the basic know your rights, those freedom mantras, Rosa, I teach them and train on them all the time. Those are basic. It doesn't matter if you're in a small town. It doesn't matter if it's a workplace. It doesn't matter if it's a school. It doesn't matter if you're stopped in the street. You have basic constitutional rights, even if you are undocumented. If you are the Black, undocumented, transgender, non-binary, disabled person who lives below the poverty line, you still have criminalized. Let me throw that in there. You still have constitutional rights, period.
Yeah.
And so you have a right not to talk to them. You have a right not to be around them. You have a right, to an attorney and to tell them, I'm not going to talk to you. If am I free to leave? If you're not free to leave, you can tell them, hey, I'm not going to talk to you. I need my attorney. You have a right not to be searched. Like, you have those rights. And so whether you're at school or whether you're at work, if you're an employer, you have rights. And the people who work for you have rights. If you're at school, and you're a school administrator or a teacher, you have rights. And those students and the faculty that are there also have rights. So we just have to keep reminding people that, hey, we have rights, and people should not be able to take those rights away from you, right? Whatever they do is what they do. What's important is how you hold on to your rights.
Yeah, I just saw this, a friend of mine. I'm going to screenshot it so I can read it to the audience real quick. Okay. So there's this meme I just recently saw, and it says, as of now, when it's for, undocumented immigrant folks, the Anne Frank rules should apply. Protect targeted people, make sure they don't disappear. Hide targeted people and make sure they are informed. Deliver no usable information to any official person. Offer no help or facilitation to any official prison. Surround yourself with trusted people who feel the same. I love that. It's like, because I've seen them go into houses and those folks, like, first you don't have a warrant. So ICE can't even go like in there. And you could see the officer then try to scare her. And she's like, you got a warrant? Nah, we good. And then at the end he goes, well, something happens to you because of these people, and I was just like, yeah, it is basic know your rights. I wonder too, like, I'm sure you have cases where there's mixed family status. How does that end up working out? Like, will children have to make a decision like, oh man, if my mom and dad or my whatever, my other family, I might move back, like, even though I've never been there, I might move there to be with my family.
This is part of what we talk about with emergency preparedness, is we have to, we want our people to be prepared to have those kinds of decisions. You can decide that, be prepared for all of it, right? So have guardianship papers that are together that you can now give to someone, you put, like my sister, this is what we have to do as revolutionaries anyway. When my child was young, right? I was like, here's the paperwork. If they come get me because I am not a jumpy, then at least I know that my son is going to someone who loves him, who cares about him, who has the means to be able to take care of him, whatever. And if something happens and I make it through the trial and I'm okay, then CPS, Child Protective Services, is not going to be able to come back and say, hey, you're a bad mom because you just left them, right? Because that happened, remember, in the first Trump administration, people's kids got adopted off. Because they didn't, and it wasn't their fault. They were separated at the border. But we can see that now. We can learn the lessons from the scars. We don't just need to have scars without lessons, right? And so there are some people that make that decision, that if they're, 6 or 7 years old, and if both of their parents are undocumented and both parents get picked up and actually get deported, then there may be a decision that, the child go back with the parents. But in the meantime, it doesn't have to be an immediate if you have a backup plan. And anyone can be a guardian, right? It doesn't have to be if you have no relatives, but you got a cool sister like I got with you, Rosa, I got you, right? And I know you got me. Like, our kids are not going to be stressed because they have us, right? They got the village, they got the family. And so you don't have to be blood family in order to play that kind of role. But this is what people should be thinking about. We should be thinking about bank accounts. If something happens to you, and if your name is the only name on the bank account, we're going to have a problem. So how do we organize ourselves? And this is just regular anyway, because yes, the hit may be a hit from immigration, but with this fool in office, who knows what the reason to come get somebody might end up being. And we got to be prepared all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, I stay ready. Like, I've learned so much from covering natural disasters. Like, we good up in this house. Like, I don't play with that, And then I think, like, especially Caribbean folks, like our elders are like, I don't know where any paperwork is. When I die, you'll find it. And you're like, no, you have to tell me. Like, they always want to keep information
because they think that's going to keep them alive. It's so ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to kill you. Just tell me what the stuff. I'm not going to kill you, I promise. Just tell me where it is.
I just want to make sure when you're gone that I have everything you worked so hard for. But the 2 federal judges have now said, like, his trying to ban birthright citizenship, that's a wrap. They're like, it's never going to happen.
It doesn't make sense. It requires a constitutional amendment. Right. People, think about the Equal Rights Amendment. If Joseph Biden could have just said, I declare that is now the amendment, he would have done it. The reason why it took this whole conversation was because it had to go through Congress. Then it had to go through state, then it was, has to be done by this archivist. Like, there's all these pieces. How is it that Donald J. Trump, for some reason, he can just say it and it is so? No, you can't change the Constitution by decree, dude. Period.
So what do you think? What does the next 6 months look like? Is it just chaos and people making their way, like we're having the analysis for sure, linking up? But what do you think?
So I think in terms of on the governmental level, I think it's going to be interesting. I think what the Trump administration is trying to do right now is to be able on April 30th, at the end of that 100 days, to be able to say, look at all the things that we did. As I said, police public officer style. Like, they're going to be claiming they did all kinds of stuff because that's what he does. You know what I mean? They're going to be claiming they did all kinds of things and achieved all kinds of things they did not achieve, but they're going to maybe have done pieces and parts of it. And he needs to rack up as many things as possible for them. I think by that time, people will, if these tariffs and all these things continue, if the monies are frozen here and employees have been sitting on their behinds for 4 months, I think people are going to start even pushing back more and more. And I think that in 6 months, we're going to start to see the beginnings of what we saw in 2020. I don't think it necessarily will be at that level because 2020 was a buildup of a long time period. But I think we're going to start to see the beginnings. I think the summer is going to be very much different than January.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that. I'm like, you can only push people so much. But when he went in on the tariffs, like what he did right was we're going to have to feel the pain. He ain't talking to us. He's talking to his own people. Right. And like right now, like some people like, I don't understand the egg price. Like, what does that have to do with inflation? When you work in a restaurant, most everything has eggs. Like that's like the number one thing that people either eat, have, or like Waffle House is like, we got to charge you $1 per egg now. It's not funny in that sense, but it's like, they're going up again. So now with playing around with these tariffs is going to impact the people that voted for him. But you know what? I also think most of those people are in Stockholm syndrome at this point. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're going to feel the pain because something better is going to come down the road when it's not.
Well, they don't feel it yet. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Who feels it knows it. That's what Peter Tosh taught us. Who feels it knows it. They don't feel it yet. But when they are hungry, they're going to feel it.
Yeah.
When they and their children don't have free breakfast and don't have free lunch. See, right now, some of what they're feeling, hey, you can go and you're picking up top ramen, you're making some kind of top ramen extravaganza. Okay. But now all the Chinese tariff, it's not gonna be whatever it is per container now, right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna have free breakfast. You're not gonna have free lunch. That's what you voted for. Not you. That's what they voted for. Mm-hmm. Your health care, your insulin that, thank God, had gone down to $35. Right. It is not $35 anymore. You and I remember, and not to say that it left, but we remember very clearly how we had elders that were choosing between eating cat food and getting their medicine. Yeah. And there was a little bit of a break from that, right? With the Affordable Care Act. And I'm not saying there weren't people still doing that. I'm saying that number had shrunk somewhat. And now that number is going to expand. People who never experienced that, if what this man is trying to do is allowed to happen, are going to start to experience that. I have friends who I love dearly who are, pretty conservative, of all races, who have not really felt like this was something that was a they problem. They thought it was a me problem, like your people, the people you're fighting for, you and your people, right? And they're like traumatized, like, wait a minute, these people might actually get rid of Medicare. You think? They might actually get Social Security. You think? Yeah. Now you're about to feel it, so now you're about to know it.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Yeah, I mean, the inflation, I've never ever noticed it in my life to like this moment, but I don't know. I hope that we do get something going like 2020 and this time be smarter about it, and because these are people's actual lives that are being destroyed. I just can't imagine someone every day living their life in fear, like every time you walk out, you don't know, and one day they'll be brutal, because they always are. Will there be more police killings over, rounding up people like they're doing? And I'm like, I know what I can do. It just doesn't seem like it's enough. So that thing of like, at some level, this is going to break. And there's going to be people that are going to be like, yo, we can't take this though. God forbid there's another pandemic, which is very real right now that obviously nobody wants to talk about because it's like, oh God, we might have to go through that again. I think we're going to have to go through those moments for the rest of our lives. I don't think it stops. It's not back to back, but 2 years was a long time, and everything that kind of broke down infrastructurally. I think too, I understand now that obviously the United States is I'm literally can't believe I can't say the word capitalism. This economy is dependent on other world economies. Now I understand China. Like I get it, but I was like, oh right. Like, we're a consumer nation. We buy, 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 buy. We don't create as much. And then, of course, you can't ever be China at that level. But now I get how this economy is dependent on the world.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And you get it. And the people that are doing tariffs on tariff for you, a tariff for you. I mean, when they was like, I'm going to do 25% tariffs on Colombia, I was like, your coffee. Your coffee. You people cannot live without 4 cups of
And your
coffee.
chocolate.
And your chocolate. Like, I'm so confused. Why are you thinking this is a fabulous idea? As the Mexican president was like, really? You forget how much you do with us. And I'm not even saying everything Mexico does with the US I like. We have a film on Baji's website called Mexico is Hell for Black Migrants. And that is absolutely true. There's a lot that Mexico does with Black migrants that is shameful and disgraceful. But
what's it called?
Mexico is Hell for Black migrants.
Oh yeah, we need to put that in the chat.
And it's on our homepage, top page of baji.org. But so it's important. We're actually screening it at the Pan African Film Festival in Los Angeles at 2 p.m. this Saturday. But yeah, we I think need to know that we have people again that are fighting back. That we also need to remember that some of us, like myself in California, perhaps yourself in New York, we actually have been in a more privileged space than people in most of the South and in the most of the Midwest who have been living hunted. I mean, in Texas, they use their, what is that, Amber Alert system, literally 3 Haitians, they don't even know if they're Haitian or not, 3 Haitians and 4 from Central America have jumped over the fence, literally. Louisiana, I think they started a bounty hunter system, right?
Mississippi, that the Mississippi district attorney is trying to get the state legislature in Mississippi to pass a law which will allow people to bounty hunt against undocumented people, and if they get deported, he wants them paid $1,000. People again will be like, "That's crazy." I'm like, "No, look at." Everything when they bondsmen became that to capture runaway slaves. So like all that old timey 1800 parchment paper thing you see, those were real bounty ads. And it's Absolutely. America. Like obviously people will be like, "Oh, this is great. This is my full-time job now."
Exactly. And we glorify people, right? Wasn't there some bounty hunter TV show or something like that where people were so excited?
Years. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So the reality is that there are people living that way every day right now. And again, that is not to say that's how we want to live, right? But that is to say that there are lessons to be learned from people who are experiencing it, for people who are most impacted about how you do this. No one can tell people who are coming up through South America, Central America, into Mexico, to the border with the United States, how to do that better than the people that have already done it. You and I can't tell them. I come with a grand plan. But the best way to understand how to do this is to learn from the people who do it. At Baji, we say you learn how to be Black in America from African Americans, from the people that have been here for 400 plus years, who have built this land, who have gone through everything. You ain't gonna come here as a Black immigrant, a Black refugee, and now try to tell people what Blackness is and how to be Black. No, I learned from African Americans, right? I'm second gen, parents come from Ghana. I learned from living with African Americans, being with African Americans, listening to African Americans. Oh, this is what it means to be Black in America.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And so we have to learn. We will learn how do you live as an undocumented person when you are literally being openly hunted from those undocumented people living in the United States in, as I said, places all throughout the South, places all throughout the Midwest, and even some places in the West and the Northeast, right? You're going to learn that from the folks who are actually going through that. And so we have to be willing to hear people's stories, which aren't going to be told on, these TVs and all these, because they have to be a little more hidden for the most part. But so we have to create the spaces that are safe enough for us to get those lessons and try to get as many lessons without the scars as we possibly can.
So as we wrap up, because the Israeli minister is here, why can't the International Criminal Court, they can't arrest him? Like, because he's on United States land. If he was somewhere else, could they?
So it's not usually the court that arrests, it has to be the country that the person is
Oh,
in. And so
okay.
the United States could decide to arrest him, but the United States is his co-defendant.
Right. I'm like, okay, that's all I
That's
need.
the Grammy. So they're not going to do that, right?
Yeah.
That is the co-conspirator or the co-actor, right? So they're not going to do that. But yeah, if they, and that's why you see some other countries that have said, yeah, come over here, and we're gonna, put you away. Obviously, I'm an abolitionist, so my thing is not necessarily the solution of the international criminal courts. I would focus more myself on really dealing with the powers that be, because those people are individuals. You arrest them and you still got people that come up right behind them. It's really about how do we address the elephant in the room that is the occupation of Palestine since 1948, that resulted from the British colonizers getting with their folks and deciding this is what we're going to do after having looked all over the globe, including an area in Kenya, right, to try to build this land for the people that they didn't want in their country, right? So this is them trying to figure out, how do we get rid of these people we don't really want ourselves anyway, and using their usual powers of colonization to effect that. And that's got to be dealt with straight on, as so many other horrifying acts and crimes against humanity and genocides need to be dealt with at the systemic level, which is going to require the kind of dismantling that people are very uncomfortable with.
Yeah, it makes sense. Definitely an abolitionist, but I'm good for him being thrown in a hole forever. So sorry, dude. There's like 5 of you who should never come out, and it's all men, but that's not my issue on that. But Nana, I would be remiss to see how you are doing and your friends over the wildfires that just recently were contained.
So I am, we're okay. I'm okay. My immediate family's okay. I have so many friends that have family, particularly in Altadena, who lived in Altadena, but some even that lived in Palisades and areas in between, because these fires were everywhere. They were like near Burbank, and all these different places. People are sort of focusing on the P's, right, the Pasadena and Palisades, but they were in a lot of places. And I just have a lot of friends who just were completely burnt out, like their houses were burnt to the ground. People of all walks of life, people who are cultural artists, someone who's a close comrade in the world of capoeira, people who are professors, people who were workers that had, cobbled all this money together from families, etc., to be able to live in these neighborhoods, people who work in these places. There's so many people who work in these places, including undocumented people who also have lost, their livelihoods,
Yeah.
And so it's been critical. It has been a hard time, but I really am glad I was in Ghana when the fires were happening, kind of like, day by day, trying to see what was going on. And then once I got here, it's really been good to see community come together the way that it has. And, hoping that continues, and that energy also gets used to talk about how do we get housing for all, right? Not just the people who lost their houses. How do we, have real conversations about how we keep each other safe, and as opposed to calling in the National Guard and the police to protect people's burnt down properties. Those types of conversations I see happening.
That's great. So can you give everybody information where they can reach you or follow you?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give the Baji information first. Again, Black Alliance for Just Immigration. You can go to baji.org, BAJI.org. You can also follow us at Instabaji, at Instabaji on Instagram. And then you can follow me at Attorney Nana everywhere. At Attorney Nana, except I'm not on TikTok. I can't do that.
No TikTok, no Blue Sky. It's enough. Before we leave, y'all, I just want you to follow Cooperation Jackson on Instagram and watch this incredible series that's going to happen called the Build and Fight Formula. So Cooperation Jackson says the Trump regime is orchestrating an economic collapse, the tariffs, and the pain they will inflict are just the beginning. Get organized as best that you can. Here are some keys to organizing with your family and comrades: mutual aid, collective food production on public and private lands, worker self-organization in cooperatives and businesses we convert into cooperatives, engage in community production, build self-defense committees, organize popular or planning assemblies to fight all the above. So check it out. The Build and Fight formula kicks off next Tuesday on the 11th. And then next day here, we're going to have Kali Okuno, the co-founder, co-director of Cooperation Jackson, with us for the hour to break down this whole series. But when we are talking about organizing and that, this is what we talk about: formulas, mutual aid, self-determination, knowing that any moment they can cut all this out. And that, how do we communicate? How do we do newsletters still that are important? All of this is necessary. So I often feel people are like, what should I do? You should follow this series. And by the time you're done with it, you will be an organizer. And I'm so glad that Cooperation Jackson is, for me, one of the best organizations right now in this country. Definitely I'm biased, but I'm not biased about the fact that Cooperation Jackson has also been from the beginning teaching us new ways to be with each other, new ways to even rebuild. Like you said, Nana, that's horrible, but it is an opportunity in Altadena to rebuild. It's the same a little bit in Puerto Rico. No one wants a hurricane. No one, we all know that. And too many people lost their lives. But after that, you could see the consciousness shift in people in Puerto Rico who are now like, wait, the government wasn't there for us. They never been there. How do we do this work? And in fact, I saw something that was really pretty amazing. So in Puerto Rico, ICE went into San Juan and detained Haitians and Dominicans, because yes, there are Haitians and Dominicans in Puerto Rico. And what they did in all the towns is they have someone going in a huge truck with a huge megaphone, like in the streets, like in Spanish, but I'll do it in English. You don't have to do anything. Don't answer the door. La amiga, not for you. Like, it was all day in the middle of the night in everywhere in Puerto Rico. And I was like, yeah, that's what we do. Like, you know, and part of that is like, that's organizing. This is good. We're always, you know, we'll have this at some level, but that's how you become a movement person and an organizer, not just an activist. So Nana Jumpy, thank you so much for being with us. You know, we'll keep bringing you back and following all the work. I hope everybody here, if you have undocumented people in your life and you need answers, again, go to Baji's website, see all the stuff there. Follow Cooperation Jackson. And I thank everybody for showing up tonight. I'll be back tomorrow. We can't stop our blackness. I'm supposed to have a big level guest. I'm waiting for the okay. So I'll put it out there tonight or tomorrow. But join me here tomorrow again. Thank you to Cooperation Jackson, my sponsor for the show, and my comrade and my lawyer and one of my besties and also my mentor. I love you, Nana.
Love you. You know, you're my mentor, but okay. Love you very much.
Each other's mentors.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, man. I love you. So yeah, everybody, thank you again. Hey, everybody, thank you again for watching. Like I said, join that well, no, all you got to do is tune into the series. I mean, and again, this is the nuts and bolts of organizing, right? And I think we've lost that in a couple generations because of social media, you know. But as we say, social media is not like liberation. This is where you can find some tools, and I'm so looking forward to this Build and Fight series. You'll be an organizer by the end. What a beautiful thing. And thank you, yeah, Amanda Land. Thank you, Amanda Seals. Love that sister. Known her forever. She's a powerful, powerful voice, a beautiful person, and will also tell it like it is. I had such a good time this morning. Amanda Land, watch her every morning too. So I'll see you everybody tomorrow. Keep following us. Subscribe to my YouTube page. I was glad to see everybody today. Get my little mojo back. All right, fam. Peace. Bendición. Peace, everybody.